Greetings, fellow nerds and geeks. Why don't you pull yourself up a chair, grab yourself a beverage, and prepare to enjoy a geek-tastic conversation. Welcome to the Geek Easy.
Hey guys, welcome to another installment of the Geek Easy podcast. This is episode 52. My name is Pixel Dan.
No, I'm Jonathan Leonard.
You seem very confused by your microphone today.
Trying to get it in the right place.
I
want to make sure the world can hear me.
That's right. We got to hear the sweet, smooth sounds of Jonathan's voice. We got to make sure that's happening. Well, Jonathan, welcome to the show. We are enjoying some expired Hi-C Ecto cooler this evening.
Brought to you by Ghostbusters.
Now in theaters?
Only in theaters. That is wrong. It's now on DVD.
That is very much wrong. I think this stuff expired at the beginning of the year or something like that, but it still tastes fine.
It was.
If we have to pause the podcast abruptly, you know what's up.
It was December 2016. I've drank way older soda. Drankin'? It's not a word. I have consumed far older soda.
I bought like a ton of this stuff when it came out because I did that whole thing where I was like, oh my god, I've got one chance to drink it and then I'll never be able to drink it again. And it was actually like really cheap to buy the cans off Amazon, and it was free shipping because I have Prime.
Yep.
So I ordered like 3 of like the 12 packs, and I have 2.5 of those 12 packs still sitting in my basement. It's ridiculous because it's really good, but you get real tired of drinking it because it's so sugary.
I think this is the second can I've had over here.
Yeah.
So I've drank like a third of what you've drank.
I know, it's ridiculous.
That's awesome.
Well, I had some of the boxes too, the juice boxes, because I found those first in stores.
Yeah.
And then these came in stock on Amazon, and I was like, yeah, cans. So I got those after I already had the juice boxes. I had my fair share.
Did you put a bunch of these in the fridge before we started?
Actually, they're just sitting right over there in the basement, but they're fairly cold, I think.
Yeah, they're cold enough, I guess.
Not super cold. Why do you want more?
I don't know. We just finish up the podcast and then go hammer down a bunch of Ecto coolers.
Just go smash it?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. That sounds like an awesome night.
Netflix and cool.
Netflix and Ecto cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
You can watch a bunch of Glow.
Oh, man. Oh, man. Well, hey, there's a good place to start. I haven't watched Glow yet. But have you watched
welcome
any
to
Glow?
Segways.
Have you started Glow?
I have.
Yeah?
I have. I'm really enjoying Glow. Well, Glow is not for kids.
Glow is not for kids.
In any way, shape, or form.
What does that mean?
Yeah, well, we talk about a lot of family-friendly stuff on the show, and so I want to make sure this is an adult program, you know.
So
there's a lot of swearing, a lot of
Annie from Community in not child-friendly scenarios.
Well, yeah, I guess I'll just confirm, yeah. But that, amongst many other things, referential and language and all sorts of stuff that the 5-year-old's well asleep before Glow gets watched.
Gotcha. I am really excited to watch it. We're probably going to jump on it this weekend at some point. Obviously, I don't know if we need to keep bringing this up, but you and I are both obviously big wrestling fans.
Mm-hmm.
We've both been involved in the wrestling scene for many, many years. So, of course, this is something that would appeal straight to us. I think it's so cool that they made a television series about this topic, basically. I think that's fun.
It is almost surreal, and it was one of, I heard the news that it was going to exist, because when they first said it, Glow's coming to Netflix, and I was like, oh no, that is the... Why would that
you
would
thought
that be?
The actual
and they're like, no, they're redoing Glow. I'm like, all right, that's worse, you know. But it's a fictionalized TV show.
Yes.
I really don't know where the lines are drawn, and I'm waiting to get a little bit deeper into it to get more accustomed to the characters.
Yeah.
To go do some research and do the legwork to find out, because it's a show where actors are playing characters and the characters are playing wrestlers. I don't know if the wrestlers are based on the actual Glow girls. I don't know if the characters that are playing the wrestlers in the show are based on real people at all, or if somebody just went, hey, there used to be this thing called Glow. Let's pretend, let's just make a TV show out of it. And
I think that's pretty much right, what you said. I think everything in the show is a fictional setting based on a real life promotion.
Yeah.
none of the characters in this are actually named after the real characters that were in there, but I think several of them are obvious homages to the wrestling characters. However, you were also talking about like the real people playing those characters. I don't know if those are like the same as the real people.
Yeah.
I mentioned this prior to recording, but I would definitely check out the Glow documentary that is also on Netflix. I watched that about a year ago, and I really liked it. It's a really well done documentary, and I almost kind of want to go watch it again before watching this show, just because I think that'll be a good refresher, and then I'll know what's what or what's supposed to be a reference or whatever. But I definitely think they just took the concept of Glow and then found a way to make it a fictional TV series, basically, which I'm totally fine
Yeah,
with.
absolutely.
It doesn't need to be a documentary or a dramatic retelling or anything like that. Just make it entertaining.
I think I will feel better laughing at some of this stuff if I find out that they are actual fully fictional people. You know, because some of some of it's almost downright tragic, except hilarious because it's played for comedy. You know.
Gotcha. I watched a non-spoilery kind of review from Wrestling with Regret, so I'll give them a shout out because that's my favorite wrestling channel on YouTube. Brian Zane does really cool content, but he did a review of it, and he basically he compared that because he had a ton of people wanting to know his opinions on it and what he thought of it being different and everything. And he basically said he loves the show. He thinks it's really well done. It's very different from what Real Glow was, but a lot of the things that are happening in there seem like they mirror a lot of the things that happened real life behind the scenes. So it looks like they're kind of doing that thing where they're kind of like based on true events kind of a thing, like we see in movies sometimes. I kind of think that's the route they're taking with the show.
Well, I mean, I'm only a couple episodes in, but whatever they're doing, it's working for me.
Sweet.
I'm enjoying it.
I'm excited to check it out. We just got through. What did we just finish up? Because we were trying to finish some things up. Oh, we just finished I guess it was the third part to The Ranch on Netflix, which is actually a super.
Oh yeah, and we've been the wife and I have been meaning to watch that and just haven't yet. I've been wanting to check out that. It's called 13 Reasons Why, I think.
Oh gosh,
I've heard a lot of good things about that.
Okay, it's a good show, but that show kind of wrecked me a little bit because it is so deep and really emotional. Like, I felt horrible after watching that show. Like, it's pretty rough. But it's a good show. So I guess that's a solid review? I mean, I don't even really know how to explain that to you. Okay, it's a good show. It's a really well-done show. But, I mean, the whole thing, deals with suicide. The whole thing's about a teenager that committed suicide.
Okay. See, I didn't even know that.
It's about a teenager that committed suicide who left behind these 13 tapes, like cassette tapes. One meant for these 13 different individuals, which basically compiles her 13 reasons for why she killed herself.
Oof. Okay, that is way deeper than I would have.
It is. It's rough, dude. Yeah. It's rough.
Sorry, I brought it up now.
It's a really well done show. I'm just warning you're not going to feel good about yourself when you're done.
Well, and I'd be 100% honest. Like I said, I didn't know anything. I knew it was a teen drama. That's what it had been billed as, and I saw some very solid reactions to it, like review-wise, but I try to avoid spoilers on stuff like that. Every once in a while, I just kind of want to go into something and not having a clue what it is, just knowing it's supposed to be good.
Yeah.
Well,
it's really well done, and I think they did a pretty good job of delivering a powerful message. You know what I mean? I think what they were trying to get across was right. I think that, the whole point of this show existing is for kind of awareness, basically, and that's a good thing overall. But yeah, it's a pretty emotionally draining show to watch and sit through. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure your wife would enjoy it.
Okay.
So you might want to let her know what it's about before she sits down to watch it.
All right. I'll keep that in mind. I've been wanting to, they canceled that Sense8 show. That was another one I wanted to pick up as soon as it started, and I think it's got through 2 seasons now. And they announced it won't be coming back for a third, but I think just today or here really recently they did announce that they are going to do one more 2-hour episode to sort of wrap it up, which I thought was cool. And that was one of those where they announced that it wasn't coming back after season 2 had already dropped, and so I started thinking maybe I just won't pick up on that because, it only being 2 seasons limits it. That almost makes it more desirable to watch because I know I won't have to commit too much time to it because I'm trying to catch up on so many other things. But now that they are tying it up, now I'm sitting here looking at it again going, well, it does have an ending at least, and it's only a couple of seasons. Maybe I will try to hammer that out, yeah, but I've got so much.
It's hard, right?
Yeah, I'm doing, right now I'm doing bouncing back and forth between Glow and trying to finish this season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which has been awesome.
I'm still so behind on S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, you should catch up. I mean, they're all on Netflix now.
I know.
So get there.
Try.
But then even after those two, I'm a couple of seasons behind on Supernatural, which is one of my favorite shows, and I got to catch up before next year because they're doing an animated Scooby-Doo episode.
Oh gosh, that's so amazing.
Yeah,
I think we brought that up before. That's so
which
cool.
is crazy. And I'm over half a season behind on 4 CW shows, the DC superhero one. So I'm just drowning in TV.
There's too
Which
much.
would sound awesome if I could ever start watching it before 11 at night.
If we could just sit around and do nothing but watch TV all the time, that'd be great.
Yeah.
We just finished up the new season of Orange is the New Black too. I don't know if you ever got on to that show.
No.
This was my favorite season since the first season. I loved it.
That's
was
good.
So great.
That's another one I always hear really good things about. I'd like to watch at some point. It's just never popped up to the top of my list for me to actually hit play on.
I was worried about it because last season was okay, but it really already started feeling like, all right, what else are they going to do with this show? Like it's, but this season was awesome. I mean, they did this whole, the entire season, not to give away too many spoilers because if you saw previews, you already know. The entire season, it's a riot. Like the prisoners basically have the prison to themselves. Like it's like it's like total chaos the whole season.
Nice.
And it just made the show different and fresh, and it was so much fun.
It's another one of those shows. It's big. People keep talking about it. Literally, the only thing I know about it is it's centered around a female prison. I have no other information other than that.
Yeah, well, it's loosely based on a book by the same name, but it kind of did that thing where, like, it started out based on that, but then, obviously, you can't turn that into several seasons of
it just
TV
became a show.
So it just became a show. Like, it started out basically kind of focused on one central character, but now it's built up so many characters that people love that it's about everybody and not really just her anymore. Yeah,
that's good.
Which is definitely good. Definitely.
Did you ever watch House of Cards?
I never watched House of Cards.
That's one that, because that was the first big Netflix one, and I wanted to be on that immediately, and it was a couple years in before we started, and I did start it with my wife, and we got about, I want to say maybe 6 episodes in, and it's one of those shows where, I mean, it's all Washington politics, so everyone's a scumbag pretty much.
Okay, yeah.
So about 6 episodes in, she's like, who am I supposed to root for? And I was like, I don't think any of them really. And she's like, yeah, I don't want to watch this anymore. She gets tired of not, she's like, there's just nothing positive. I don't want anything good to happen. She gave up on The Walking Dead a few seasons back. I might have brought this up before because she's like, I just keep wanting them to find a cure and everybody to be happy. I'm like, oh, honey, that's not this show,
That's so
she's like, I just don't think I want to do it anymore. I'm like, all right.
That's good.
That's fine. But that's I got like 6 episodes into House of Cards, and then she stops. I was like, cool, now I can really hammer this out because I don't have to, concentrate on times when we can both sit down and watch it. And then I never finished it. Never did.
Well, speaking of new TV, we just got a brand new trailer today for Marvel's InHumans.
Your segue game is picking up.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it? I'm doing pretty
loving
good.
it.
Getting good at this. Getting good. So Marvel's InHumans trailer dropped today, basically giving us our first real look at everything in motion. We had only seen like a still shot of the team recently.
Yeah.
So this was our first look at everything in actual footage, and they're doing that thing where it says, did they shoot the whole series with IMAX cameras or just this first episode?
I believe just that first episode because that's the only one they're releasing in IMAX.
They're releasing it in IMAX, almost like a mini movie kind of thing, and then it will also debut as a series on television.
I think it's like the first 2 episodes technically, so it's like movie length.
Remember when they did that with Star Wars Clone Wars? That was crazy.
Oh, I didn't until you said it, but now I do.
Yeah, we totally went and saw that in theaters.
Yep.
And I remember thinking when I watched it, like, this doesn't feel like a movie. This is weird.
Yeah.
But then I ended up really loving that TV show.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this new trailer?
It looks. I saw a couple people complain that it looks like an overdone TV show, but it's exactly what it is. So I mean, like, seriously, this is an ABC production. It should fit right in line with like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I didn't expect like huge budget, MCU style and feel to it. I expected. I had sort of forgotten they were even doing the IMAX thing until the preview came out.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I thought it looked like an interesting show. I don't know much about the backstory on the InHumans. I know some of the characters mostly from like collecting the Marvel cards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they'd show up in stories every once in a while. But I mean, I'm stoked for it. I am curious as to where and how it fits in line with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and everything they do with the InHumans, because they didn't make any sort of reference in the trailer, nothing that I caught anyway, that really explains where they fit in to the larger narrative.
That's kind of what I'm wondering too. Like, surely they can't just ignore all the human stuff going on in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., can they?
Well,
it's got to be somehow tied to that, doesn't it?
I would say it would be very easy for this show to ignore what goes on in that show. I feel like it would be hard for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to ignore what's going to happen in this show.
Yeah. I mean, I just want there to be some sort of acknowledgement. It feels weird to have two Marvel properties that are in the same universe, that both have InHumans, that don't have anything directly to do with each other. Mm-hmm. That's a little odd. But
exactly. And I don't need, the shows don't have to cross over for half the season.
Yeah.
They don't have to cross over for one episode. I just want the acknowledgement in there somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Of what's going on, because a lot of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has been circling around the InHumans for several seasons now.
Yeah, exactly.
So it would be a little weird if the royal family showed up on Earth, because I guess that's the storyline, is basically the bad brother, I don't even think he exiles him. I think he's trying to probably kill him, and they run away, and they're hiding out on Earth, trying to get back to the kingdom or regain control or whatever. And while the bad guy's probably hunting him, or however it goes. So it would be, like you said, it would just be weird if there was no correlation whatsoever. If they just tried to make this standalone story about what the other story is also about, without mentioning it.
Well, I will fully admit that I don't really know anything about the InHumans. This is one Marvel group that, I know the bare minimum about these guys. I'm kind of like you. Like, I know who Black Bolt is simply by seeing him on the Marvel trading cards that I was buying as a kid, or seeing him popping up in X-Men or whatever. You know what I mean? So I don't know a lot about these guys. So fully admitting, know nothing about this. That trailer didn't really do anything for me. I honestly watched it and I was just kind of like, well, I'm gonna watch this. Lockjaw looks awesome.
Yep.
That's the dog, right?
Yep.
I thought he was super cool looking, and I know he's the one that everybody's like really excited to see is Lockjaw. And I will say that was really cool when that scene happened where he kind of bomped in there. And I was like, oh yeah, that's exciting. That looks like a comic book. But the rest of it, I don't know if it's just because I don't know what to be excited about. But I'm just like, I don't know what's going on here, and it's hard to be interested.
Yeah. Well, because even with that trailer, they give you very little of what's really going on.
You don't really get a lot of story out of that.
It was like a souped-up teaser almost.
Yeah.
And which it's coming in September already.
That's
like the beginning of the month is the IMAX one. So
we'll have to go see that at the IMAX. You think we'll get that at our IMAX here?
I'm sure we will.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to go check that out.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how that transfers to a movie experience, if it works like the Clone Wars did, or anything else. I
think it's a short season too, but I could be way off on that. I felt like it was only like 8 or 10 episodes I had read at one point. But
so are they doing this like in a season format, or is this just like a TV miniseries?
I assumed season, but now that you ask, I'm not positive.
The trailer almost kind of presented it like it was a series, not like a ongoing show. But I mean, maybe that's just, I don't know.
Yeah,
it doesn't really specify.
Well, and a lot of times with stuff like this, they until they find out what's going on, they sort of make a self-contained story. So where if no one watches, they'll just release their 8 episodes and be done with it. And if everybody else watches, then they'll just figure out what to do in season 2. So a lot of times they sort of bill it that way.
That's true.
Just sort of see what happens.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, see how it goes, see how the ratings are.
At the end of the day, no matter what they're planning, it's all based on whether or not somebody's watching it,
Exactly.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. gets a little bit of a pass, whereas it doesn't have to have the grandest of ratings to stay alive because of the larger Marvel universe and the fact that it's Disney and ABC.
Oh yeah.
Who run it. So
well, this is on ABC also, right?
yeah, exactly. And so this will benefit some from that also, depending on how much integration there is at least. But again, I mean, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. won't make it if nobody's watching, and obviously this won't either.
Right. Cool.
I do think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has been renewed officially. I'm sure it has.
Probably.
It has.
Yeah.
Sometimes I forget how late into the season we are. Like we're almost to the fall.
I was gonna say it's only a couple months.
So, yeah.
We're gonna be getting new stuff starting up again. So sweet. All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the movie theaters then and start talking about some different movie stuff. Did you have a specific starting point you wanted to go with here? I know you had a couple movies you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. No. I mean, I guess chronologically, I did want to. Talk a little bit about The Mummy, which came out by this point a couple of weeks ago. You haven't seen it. I don't know that you're that interested in it.
I am not that interested. I had minor interest in the idea that they're going to be building a Universal monster world. MCU style.
The Dark Universe.
The Dark Universe.
They even have a logo for it already.
But and they were showing off like cast members from the various movies that they haven't really even announced yet.
They've got some big names. Yeah, they don't even have like official movies for most of these guys or dates, but they have the characters lined up and cast already.
Weird. But the movie itself, I don't know. Like, it just didn't really jump out at me. And the more recent trailers that I started seeing looked better than the early trailers. I will give it that. Like, I was kind of watching that, and I liked kind of the scarier vibe that it kind of has. Almost like they're kind of bridging on horror, but not quite full-on horror movie. But I don't know. Tell us about it.
Well, it very much, and we won't do full-on review or anything like that. It very much is sort of that hybrid you're talking about, though, which it really intrigues me. I love when they do stuff like that because it's nothing I would call a scary movie or a horror movie exactly, but it is exactly what you would expect if they dropped Tom Cruise into a horror movie, of sort of what you would get. It is very much Mission Impossible meets the supernatural realm, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And what a big fan of Club Dread I am.
Oh yeah.
That Broken Lizard movie from over a decade ago now, I think, which at the time I will always argue, because a lot of people did not like that movie at all, and I will always argue that movie was very misunderstood to the point where people didn't like it because it was 50-50 slasher flick and comedy. And you don't really you see spoofs of slasher flicks, you see slasher flicks with jokes. You don't see that mix like right down the middle before, but it really intrigued me and drew me in, and I've loved that movie ever since. And I kind of had that same feeling with this one. I won't say that I loved The Mummy, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm a big Tom Cruise movie fan. I know he gets a lot of flack for being kind of a nut job. I don't know him personally. I don't know if I'd like hanging out with him or not, but I'm very entertained by his movies, So I was already excited by the concept of that and the idea that they were going to take this big Hollywood action star and drop him into this, theoretical horror franchise was intriguing to me. And I didn't know exactly what to expect, but I enjoyed what I got. It took a lot of hits on the review side. I don't know how.
Yeah, it didn't do very well, right?
Yeah, well, and that's what I really wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Review-wise, no, it got pretty well torn apart, which I think a lot of that was undeserving, and some of that was, people sort of misunderstanding what they were going into. But a lot of it was just that it wasn't a critical cup of tea. That's all there is to it.
Gotcha.
And I really don't know what audience reactions have been. It did not make very much money stateside, which is what I find hilarious on the business side of movie making. I read article after article where the headlines were basically, what is Universal going to do? They've got this huge bomb on their hands. This Tom Cruise movie has tanked. They're supposed to be building a universe. What's the next step? And the headlines are some version of, there's this huge dud.
Mm-hmm.
What do they do next? Their universe is already doomed out of the gate. What are they going to do? Somewhere in the fifth or sixth paragraph of all these articles, or if you go and look at the financials on this thing, it made like $36 million opening weekend domestically, which is not, a huge sum of money for a big summer blockbuster.
Yeah.
Made $190 million over that same time period on the 3-day weekend worldwide.
Oh.
It was Tom Cruise's largest international opening ever.
Dude, international is like what's saving movies these days.
You know,
Isn't
well,
that
and
weird?
that's the thing. Like, so there's all these doom and gloom articles, and then they do acknowledge it somewhere. You know, like, well, it made this much, and the budget was like 140, I think.
Okay.
I mean, an expensive movie for sure, but by today's standards, not earth-shattering. And I will point out, as I'm sure you can all tell, 140 is less than 190. You know,
So it made its money back
yeah,
in the
and
first weekends.
Yeah, exactly. And I really can't imagine Universal cares where the money's coming from.
Yeah.
I don't see how they can. I can see them being worried about the domestic box office because America is supposed to be where you make a ton of it, and if you sell it here, then you don't have to worry so much about how you sell it everywhere else. It's sort of the home turf thing. So I can definitely see that being an area of concern. But if they get a $200 million opening weekend every time they make a $100 million movie, they're going to keep making that movie,
Yeah,
you know?
totally. I keep reading stuff about how China has become like a huge market for these big movies, and that's where like all of the money is being made now is in China because these movies are all wildly successful there, to the point where Hollywood's like starting to make movies like aimed towards making money from China. Like they're at that point now.
They've been doing that for a little while. Well, you remember when they redid Red Dawn several years ago here? I don't know if you remember that at all. I don't know if you're familiar with Red Dawn, the Patrick Swayze 80s classic.
Okay, yeah.
That's the one where in the 80s version, basically Russia invades America, and this small town that is one of the towns they invade. A group of high schoolers get together and form a resistance, and they redid it in I want to say 2010-ish. I could be several years off there, but it was Chris Hemsworth. It was one of his early bigger vehicles. And it got delayed like 2 years or something absurd because when they first filmed it, it was a Chinese invasion because that made more sense than a Russian invasion in the modern world. Well, shortly, they made the movie, they're editing it, it's almost in the can, and the studios are starting to realize we're making a ton of money in China. We really don't want to upset
we can't
China.
Make them the bad guys.
So like, and not even, what if this movie doesn't make money there? It's part of that, and part of what if all of our movies don't make money there after that if we upset them?
Yeah.
So they had to re-edit it and make it like North Korea.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so it took forever for it to finally come out, and then obviously it bombed pretty hard here and I think everywhere else and that kind of thing. But that's what I always look at that as sort of the turning point. That's how I remember that, this is a fairly recent thing. But yeah, they are looking, and China's one of the bigger international ones, but the international market's always interesting anyway because you will start seeing all these returns come in, and a lot of it is, it made $5 million in Germany and $4 million in Sweden and $3 million in Italy and $8 million in Russia, and you see all these, and they seem like piddly numbers.
Yeah.
When you look at, but they're talking about how great it did in some of these places, and you're like, it didn't seem like that much because I'm used to a $100 million U.S. opening is a good opening, that kind of thing. But then when you look at it as, this is their number in Russia, I was like, well, that's okay. And then you look at it internationally, like, oh, all those 5s and 8s add up.
Yeah,
to 190 eventually at some point. So that was just kind of my thing with the Mummy. First of all, I am a fan of schlock if it's well done, or if I know what I'm getting into, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
This movie's definitely kind of campy, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really did.
Okay.
And there was a kind of I don't know if I guess you call it a twist at the end. Sort of a twist ending.
Okay.
But I really liked what they did there. I have no idea what it'll mean for the future, but I was interested by it,
Gotcha.
But I'm not looking at it. I'm not looking at a movie like this on a higher return level. It's not because I will give movies like this a pass, whereas I'll sit here on this show week after week and complain about DC movies that some of the things they do might not be as bad as something that happens in The Mummy. But I don't care about The Mummy, you know what I mean? I can just watch it more objectively and go, okay, I didn't expect more out of this, so I'm fine with what I got. There we go. I'm not saying it's as bad as any DC movies. It's not. It's not as bad. It's better than all of them except for Wonder Woman.
It's better than
leaps and bounds. But my point is, I sometimes I feel bad nitpicking one thing more than another, but I expect more out of some things than I do out of others. That's all I'm saying there.
Right.
Build your world and live in that world. That's all I want,
We had to get a DC shot in there somewhere.
Exactly.
So
it had to come up at some point. So, But I would give it a recommendation. If you like Tom Cruise movies, you should go see this one. And I think you don't have time, so I'm not going to force it to the top of your list. In a perfect world, I would like you to watch it because I want your take on it and how.
I don't think I'm going to rush out to go see it because there's other things I want to go see. But when it pops up where I can watch it at home, I might give it a shot just to watch it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, to see the beginning of the Dark Universe.
Right, exactly. Especially since they're planning to build a universe about it, I kind of feel like I want to watch that happen.
It's another. They are definitely rushing too far ahead into some of this stuff. They didn't need their own logo. They didn't need to announce cast members for movies. The next one of these isn't slated for almost 2 years.
This is how it's done.
And it's not even a mummy movie. It's like, I think Bride of Frankenstein is what they're eyeing, but they're eyeing it for like February of 2019. If you're going to have a logo, have a movie coming out in under 2 years.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
we talked about this a little bit on the last episode, but this is the negative side effect of the Marvel Cinematic Universe because this is just what everything's doing now.
Yeah.
This is how Hollywood thinks it has to work now to make all the money.
And that can be negative. That can be positive. I just don't understand why you're exactly what you're saying, because that's how they feel like they have to do it. This is what
they feel like they have to do.
But this is a bad example of it because it is really, putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah. It's not like no Skeletor in the first He-Man movie bad, but it's it's along those lines.
It's just there's no reason to build up that much anticipation for something you don't even know what you're making next.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't advertise it until you have something.
Well, but I'm curious to see how it unfolds.
Go see The Mummy.
Okay.
Get those domestic box offices up for it. And the guy from New Girl, the guy who plays Nick on New Girl.
Okay, yeah, I like that guy.
Yeah, and he's like the sidekick.
Oh, he's in it?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
He's like Tom Cruise's buddy.
Oh.
And he's hilarious.
Well, that guy right there bumps that up a notch. I love that guy.
They do the super confusing thing to me where they named Tom Cruise's character Nick.
Oh, that is
so confusing. Every once in a while that guy's like, Nick. I'm like, wait, you're Nick. No, you're not Nick. You're someone different in this movie.
Remember that guy was just in Jurassic World randomly for a little bit?
Yeah.
I love that guy.
Yeah, he was awesome.
I loved Jurassic World. I'm kind of excited for the new one of those. But
yeah, that's coming. We should start to see footage anytime now. They have a name for it. Now I forgot the subtitle.
I just know that it's got Ian Malcolm in it, which
makes
me really excited.
Yep.
Sweet. All right, so we're getting ready. We're gearing up to go see Spider-Man Homecoming. Ooh. It is getting so close. The next podcast will definitely be about Spider-Man Homecoming. But the premiere just happened. The early premiere, not the national,
not the one you guys and us can go see.
But we saw the red carpet deal and all that just happened, and so reviews are starting to go out there, and it's looking pretty good for this movie so far.
I was reading them earlier today on Rotten Tomatoes. There were 36, I want to say, critical reviews in, one negative. It was at like a 97%. But
one negative. Who's that guy?
I went to look. It's funny. I read snippets of a bunch of the positive reviews, and I read most of the negative review. Once it got to the point where it started getting into specifics, I stopped reading to avoid spoilers. But I was like, "What is this guy's problem?"
Yeah. What's wrong with this guy? I didn't see a single Superman or Batman in this. I hate it.
Which all I can say is to each their own. I don't know if his points are valid or not because I haven't seen the movie.
Right.
What excites me way more than that score, because Rotten Tomatoes, I love Rotten Tomatoes. It is a pass-fail system, though. You can have 36 out of 36 C pluses and B minuses, and that's still 100% rating. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's which
a thumbs up. Basically.
Yeah, I mean that's great, and that's good. That's a good sign for your movie. But more importantly, is when you're reading the snippets, and I read probably that opening paragraph where I bet all 36, because I wanted to see actual reactions,
Gotcha.
and it is nothing but a sea of best Spider-Man yet, best Spider-Man since Spider-Man 2, which is sort of the critical pinnacle of
that's the one that everybody
Spider-Man
seems to
movies.
love.
Yeah, absolutely. Best Marvel movie we've seen in years, if not ever.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, everybody's saying that Tom Holland knocks it out of the park.
Gosh. He already feels like he does, even though we haven't seen the movie,
absolutely.
right? Like, just the little bit we saw of him in Civil War and just from the trailers, it's just like, man, this kid is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And we haven't even seen the movie
Honestly,
yet.
reading interviews of this kid as himself make it feel like Peter Parker sometimes.
Oh,
it's
man,
great.
That's so good.
A lot of people are saying how great Michael Keaton is, how there is, just the perfect amount of Robert Downey Jr., so nowhere near as much as the poster would have you believe.
Where it's got like three Tony Stark faces on it, 2 Iron Man faces.
Yeah, so he's a presence in the movie, but it's not an Iron Man movie, though.
That's
basically what we're saying.
That's
so
good.
Everything has just been absolutely glowing, except for that one guy. But everything else is not just
Maybe that guy
not
was
just.
mad that there wasn't enough Tony Stark.
Who knows? Could be.
Should put his face on the poster.
But like I said, that's the great. It's not just at 97%; it's at a glowing 97%.
That's great. I couldn't be more excited, man.
Oh my.
I mean, gosh.
We ordered our IMAX tickets already.
Yeah,
so
we have our tickets.
We're
We're gonna go see this movie together. It's been a while since we've seen a movie.
It has
together,
been a long time.
So I'm excited, and we will try to record shortly after seeing it. So I think we're seeing it Thursday
night late. Yep.
So maybe Friday we can try to record, or sometime
Could be doable.
soon after that. And that way we'll get an episode up pretty quick for opening weekend, and we can all geek out about it together.
Yeah,
I'm really excited.
Absolutely.
Love me
For
some
those
Spidey.
not in the know, we just got an IMAX in town. That's why we keep talking about it. We're like, ooh, IMAX,
Yeah,
IMAX.
we've never had one here in town before.
Yeah, we've always had to drive at least an hour.
Yeah, to the bigger cities to go see an IMAX.
Yep.
So it's kind of cool that we have one now. I haven't been to it yet. This
It's
will be
neat.
my first movie there.
I saw Pirates there.
Oh, cool.
So
this will be my first experience. I think Spider-Man's a good first IMAX
Absolutely.
movie. I'm
Absolutely.
excited for that. Yes, so cool. So I guess one of the big movie pieces of news this last week here that we definitely want to talk about revolves around the Han Solo film. The news broke that the directors on the film had been let go. And shortly after that, we got the news that Ron Howard would be taking over the directorial duties on the Han Solo film. And this has been kind of a crazy little whirlwind of news stories that's been coming out from it.
Well, this was last Wednesday or Thursday when it broke that they had been removed, and they were still, we hadn't figured out how's wise or who, whose idea it even was, anything like that. And I, not to throw you under the bus or anything, but we were supposed to record last week.
Yeah.
Well, we were supposed to do it one day, and it didn't work out. And I don't even remember if it was anybody's fault or if we just decided to do it the next day. And I remember earlier that next day reading that this had happened, that Lord and Miller were out. And I was like, wow, huge news always hits the day after we record. So we fooled news by changing our plans last minute. This is great. We're going to get to talk about this fresh. And then you ended up having to cancel that night. I'm like, no.
It was because I was going on a trip. I just did the Too Many Games convention.
Yeah.
And things were way too hectic for me to stop to record. So
yeah.
My bad, guys.
Yeah.
We could have talked about this a lot sooner.
And it happens. I just thought it was funny on the timing because I was like, ha, we got you. I feel like we Final Destinationed almost, Like, we weren't supposed to have this news yet until after we recorded, but we tricked them by changing our plans, and then our plans changed again. I'm like,
we died
there
anyway.
we go. Yeah. There it is.
Yep. Oh, man, that's funny.
This is fairly unprecedented, though. I mean, I guess there's been similar things. You don't really see directors change halfway through shoots or towards the end of shoots. You've seen some similar things. A lot of people have made relations between this and what happened with Rogue One. But Rogue One was, they didn't kick the director off the set.
Right.
They brought in another guy to do some of the reshoots and to oversee some overhauling of how things were done. So that in and of itself was definitely, it was a happening, but it was nothing quite like, they fired these guys with 3 weeks left of shooting.
It's so crazy to think about that, right? And that, of course, that's Phil Lord and Chris Miller. And these are the guys that were responsible for movies like The Lego Movie and 21 Jump Street. Mm-hmm. And it's what's crazy about it is, I don't know how many of the different, reports you read and stuff. But I was reading several of the things out there. But there were reports when it was announced to the crew that the two had been fired, that they erupted in applause. The crew and everything was happy to see them get fired. And there was some other report coming out that they were attempting to make the Han Solo character too Ace Ventura-like. Mm-hmm. And that was part of the that was part of the creative differences that they were having with Disney and the cast and everything. And it's just like, I mean, this stuff is insane to read about.
Well, I tell you, from day one when this news broke, the popular reaction is always to run down the evil studio execs and how they hate creativity and how they want everything to be cookie cutter. And so, of course, they bring in, an old Hollywood guy like Ron Howard because he's going to do it by the book. And, the Star Wars spin-offs are supposed to be new takes on some of this stuff, and so whatever happened to creative freedom. So that's always like the initial reaction, and I get all of that, but I will tell you, and I cannot cite exactly what I've read or seen in the past, but my first reaction when I found out that they had left the movie was like, there's no way they did this unless it was a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not just going to, these guys aren't doing quality work and then getting kicked off set because they had a disagreement with some of the producers. I mean, the names you see flung around the Star Wars universe are not people who make decisions lightly. And I mean, Lawrence Kasdan is one of the big names behind this movie, the guy who wrote Empire Strikes Back and has been involved with the Star Wars universe for 40 years. Han Solo practically is his baby.
Yeah.
And I said he's not going to make a decision like that lightly, and he's not going to do it because of some minor differences or some set disagreement or anything like that. He's going to do that because this needs to be done for whatever reason. And I love Lord and Miller. I love their work up to this point. Those 21 Jump Street movies are surreal in how intelligent they are.
Oh, I know. Those movies are great. The Lego movie is amazing.
Yeah.
And
but then when you see things like, they're turning Han Solo into Ace Ventura, I don't want to see that.
No, of course not.
And not every style works with every movie and every character, and that's all there is to it.
And I've seen some people like kind of talking about, this is just like what happened with Ant-Man with Edgar Wright. Mm-hmm. But the difference is like that was Edgar Wright's script, and this was a case where like this wasn't their script. You know? Like the script's already in place; they were just the director, so that's where it's different. Edgar Wright decided to walk away because he had a set script, and he didn't. Marvel wanted him to incorporate the references to the rest of the universe.
Exactly,
and he didn't want to do that. That was like a legit creative differences thing where they split. This is a kind of a different scenario
for sure, totally. And so I think in our question section on Facebook, I think somebody kind of brought up the Zack Snyder Justice League thing, but Zack Snyder stepped down himself because of very personal reasons.
Family personal issues.
Totally not the same boat as what's happening here. This really, I can't think of another example that really parallels what has happened here. But again, everything I hear, I will say the applause thing, I've heard that two ways. I've heard what you just said, and then I read a rebuttal about that basically said, the applause wasn't necessarily uproarious, and it was more, because at the same time they announced Ron Howard, so it was more like respect for him.
Oh, yeah, Ron Howard.
Which could have been either way.
Could have been.
Absolutely. It really could have been.
And it's, you never know. And reading these articles, that could be translated differently the way it's written, and none of us were actually there to witness it. It's tough to say.
I have read a couple of times that the guy playing Han Solo, whose name I would butcher if I tried to say it because I can't remember. There was a couple of reports that said basically he was one of the ones calling the warning signs. He was one of the ones getting Kathleen Kennedy and Lawrence Kasdan involved, going, "Hey guys, I don't know what's going on here, but I don't think this is." It's like Alden
Ehrenreichs.
There you go.
Ehrenreichs. I had saw that he was like the first person to blow the whistle, basically.
They talked about how they ended up getting him an acting coach at some point, like halfway through the shoot, because he wasn't necessarily. And I don't even know if it was Lord Miller who made that happen, or if somebody else made him get one because they were seeing the dailies and going, "What is this guy doing?" But they had a very improvisational style. It kept being said. Lawrence Kasdan wanted what was written down in the script to be what went on film. And I don't think that means word for word, description for description, everything has to be 100% cookie cutter from what I wrote down. Maybe it is. I'm not sure. But I feel like that's more him going, hey, we wrote a script with a tone, with a certain, type of characters, and you're giving us Spaceballs.
Oh no!
You know, and that's not meshing. And I saw something else too. Sort of, I wish I could find the article, but it was sort of towards the beginning of all this happening, so it got lost in the shuffle. But I really liked what the author was saying about, or I don't remember if it was the author's opinion or if it was a quote even, but somebody was basically saying, like, Han Solo is not a funny character.
Right.
Like, Han Solo is not a comedian. Han Solo is a scoundrel. He's very charming, and he finds himself in comedic situations from time to time.
He's got,
but that there's
cocky.
So he's likable, and he's going to crack a joke once in a while, but there is a big difference between lovable scoundrel and Jim Carrey caricature. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, and I love Ace Ventura movies. I just don't want to see one with Han Solo.
We don't want to see a Han Solo Ace Ventura movie, you know? And, like, you start hearing stuff like that, and that's the exact kind of thing that always terrified me about getting a prequel like this. And we briefly talked about this on the last episode because somebody had asked feelings on prequels like this, and I always kind of talked about, like, my worry with this was how they were going to handle the Han Solo character, because A New Hope was supposed to kind of be like that character's redemption, and up to that point he was supposed to kind of be a scoundrel and a pirate.
And like, I want him to be a bad guy.
Right. I mean, he kind of needs to be almost a bad guy, like a lovable bad guy, but
like a Jack Sparrow without the mannerisms.
Right, exactly. So when you start hearing things like, oh, they were making him like Ace Ventura, it's like, no, that's exactly what I was worried you guys were going to do to the Han Solo character. So, this has just been real crazy stuff to hear, but it also kind of shows that, I mean, obviously Disney is being very protective of this property that they own and these characters.
Which I don't have a problem with. I mean, that's what they're supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
And again, and I will harken back to, we don't have anything exactly like this that I remember ever seeing, but just a year ago, we had the next closest thing, which was when they brought in Tony Gilroy to oversee all the reshoots on Rogue One.
Oh,
and Gareth Edwards was involved. They kept him on set. They didn't kick him out. No one knows if he was involved on a decision-making basis or if they kept inviting him out of respect and to not get in trouble with the Directors Guild. We don't know if he did anything with those reshoots or if the movie basically got stripped for him and redone by other people. What we do know is we had a huge critical and commercial success.
Right.
Everybody liked that movie. They did a good job with whatever it was, and there didn't seem to be any hard feelings between studio and Gareth Edwards by any means, in either direction that I ever remember reading about. So whatever they're doing, I have no reason not to have faith in them at this point.
Yeah.
They know the universe. They know the movies that they've made. They've got one of the guys who defined the character 40 years ago is coming in and going, this is not the character. I'm going to back him before I back the 21 Jump Street guys. Until I see otherwise.
So at least we do have that there, and I think that is a good sign that things were done for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just like you said, like, I like those guys in the movies that they've made, but not every style meshes. And that's probably what this just really boils down to here.
I mean, best wishes to them. They're still working on a Spider-Man animated movie, I believe. I'm super excited about.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Anything I hear that they're doing next, I mean, I like their filmography. I'm going to be excited to see what they do. I'm not going to be too terribly upset if they got pulled from something that they didn't belong on.
Right,
and
exactly.
Sometimes that happens, and I'd much rather them get pulled now, that movie get pushed back, and Ron Howard come in and redo the whole thing if he has to, than get a crappy Han Solo movie.
I know. I'm really curious to see or hear, I guess, about how much has to change or what needs to be reshot. I just saw a quick headline. I tried to get more info, but
That was the other thing I keep hearing brought up is the Josh Trank thing, because remember Disney fired Josh Trank shortly from doing an untitled Star Wars movie shortly after Fantastic Four came out. Still not the same thing though. First of all, that was before. I mean, they hadn't even announced what the movie was.
And that was pretty much based on what happened with Fantastic Four, right?
Well, partially based on the money from Fantastic Four, I'm sure, partially based on the lack of quality from Fantastic Four and positive.
Well, and you remember all the
as
stories.
much, I was about to say, as much based on the fact that dude had a total breakdown.
Yeah, I was going to say, there was a lot of very negative news about him around that movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And, like,
And his
the
behavior,
set
and
everything, yeah.
you know, he was throwing the studio under the bus. He was throwing the movie under the bus before it even came out.
Yeah.
Tweeting all sorts of negative stuff about how everything went down.
Train wreck.
I mean, you can't
All the
do
way
that
through.
stuff and then walk into Disney.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, I'm a professional. Let's make some movies. You know,
Right.
they're not going to let that fly. So again, totally different circumstances, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm curious to see what's going to come of it. Obviously, this has been
Yep.
huge movie news. I'm just like everybody's still talking about it.
I'm
There's
just
been news
mostly
stories.
hoping everybody just stays professional and moves on, and you know, 2 years from now we're still not talking about the time that whoever said whatever stupid on Twitter. Like I said, cut it here, cut your losses.
Yeah.
Both parties can move on and just keep making great movies.
Let's just get a good movie.
Yeah.
That's what we want in the end. Just a good Han Solo movie. Something
Yep.
we can have fun with and enjoy. Last little bit of movie news to talk about. Another trailer that just recently dropped. I thought it'd be fun to kind of talk about this. Jumanji. I didn't really know what to think of this when they first announced it. I was kind of like, oh, is this a sequel? Is this a remake? Do we really need another Jumanji movie? So I didn't really know exactly what was going on with this. I knew that it had The Rock in it, and that always makes me slightly excited regardless of the movie because, come on, man. I love The Rock.
Yeah.
I don't even care. I just like The Rock.
And he generally makes pretty good decisions.
Yeah,
you know?
and even if the movie's not like a huge moneymaker, he usually ends up being very entertaining. In the
Exactly.
movie. You know, he's just that guy. He's just
Exactly.
super entertaining to watch.
Baywatch
So-
was kind of a flop, but it was another one I heard good things.
I haven't seen Baywatch. I was surprised that it flopped so hard. I feel like that got like a huge commercial
Got a big push, yeah.
and then it just came
Yeah.
out and fizzled.
Well, and my you know what I'm to understand is basically I think they were trying to recreate like a 21 Jump Street.
Like a campy,
With it, and
like
that's-
not totally
yeah.
serious, like recreation of that TV series.
Yeah, and
Gotcha.
that's one of those things where you know more power to you when you want to try, but I mean that's lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
You can't just pick up every 90s TV show and get a success like that out of making it into a comedy. You know?
Totally.
Now, I've also heard that the movie's very funny.
I'll see it eventually. I
Yeah,
definitely
same
will.
here.
Yeah,
Same
I
here.
definitely will.
So,
Jumanji, now that we've seen the trailer, I don't think it's supposed. I think it's just like it doesn't even look like a remake of the original. Right?
Yeah,
it
it-
looks like a brand new movie with kind of the same concept,
Yeah.
but not even fully the same concept.
I feel like it's based on the idea of Jumanji.
Yeah.
Sort of what they did.
Well, because the original Jumanji, just as a refresher, obviously, okay, so in the original movie it was a board game, and what happened was, like, when they started playing it, everything came out of the board game into the real world.
Yeah.
This almost seems to be taking an opposite approach of that. First of all, they modernized it, so instead of being a dusty old board game, they made it an old video game system that the kids didn't know what it was, which was hilarious, but also made me feel like a really old person. Like, they pull out this thing that looks like an Atari or something, and they're like, what is this? And I'm like, ugh. I feel ancient now. But yeah, basically, Jumanji's a video game, but the way it's a little different from the original movie is when they start playing, they go into the game.
Yeah.
So they're like in the world of this game instead of the game coming into the real world.
Which when in I'll have to go back. It's been so long since I've watched the original Jumanji. I felt like they were trapped in the game too. Something like I know the stuff started popping out of it, but I still
So-
feel like they ended up in the because it hadn't Robin Williams been
Williams
trapped
had
there.
been trapped in there, but like it was it was a penalty. Like, you know, it was one of those kind of like lose your turn kind of things. And he got sucked into the game. And then the other girl stopped playing the game. So he got trapped in that game for all those years until those kids discovered
Okay.
it. And they had to finish the game that was started back when they
Okay,
started
yep,
playing. So
that's
that
right.
was the
Now it's all-
concept.
now
of
it's
that
all
movie.
coming back.
Yeah, that was the concept of that one. So really everything was kind of breaking into the real world except for that time he spent like with a turn lost or
Yeah.
whatever it was. Yeah. So this one, it looks like they're being sucked into the video game. And it's also a different concept because the kids become the actors. Like, you know, The Rock and
Kevin Hart
and Jack Black. Yeah. So, like, they basically become the avatars.
Karen Gillan.
Yeah.
Gillan. I don't know the chick from the girl who played Nebula.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, so it looks really funny because they totally do that thing where like the nerdy kid becomes the Rock, and
Yeah.
the nerdy girl becomes the hot chick, who, by the way, had one of my favorite quotes in the whole movie. Like, they get sucked in, and she goes, "Why am I wearing half of a shirt and short shorts in the jungle?" I died, dude. That was awesome. And then, like, you know, the big jock is Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
He's like, 2 feet of me is missing. He said. And then the other, like, the preppy, like, girl is Jack Black, which
Yeah.
is the funniest. That is so funny. So immediately it looks hilarious.
Yeah, for sure.
I was cracking up just watching the trailer. It's fresh with kind of the same idea, but, like, feels like a fresh movie. So honestly, that trailer, like, that did it for me. I'm pretty excited to check this movie out.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I wasn't excited. I'll watch anything with The Rock in it. Beyond that, it was another one of those where I am totally fine with Hollywood remakes, but Jumanji was one of those where I just felt like I feel like I got everything, even on an effects level. I feel like I got everything I needed out of that movie.
That's how I felt too.
Because a lot of older, I rewatched Beetlejuice recently, and that movie's way crazier than I remember, which is impressive because I remember it being crazy.
Yeah,
but that is one where I was watching that going, I cannot believe this hasn't been redone, because of as cheesy and dated as those effects are, you could make Beetlejuice on a whole new level now.
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes you see a remake like that come through and you're like, okay, that's totally necessary. But then on the opposite side, I saw they were remaking Jumanji. I'm like, I don't feel like the effects were that dated. And maybe if I watched it again, I would. But I feel like what they were going for there, they got already. So
Totally.
It's not like a new technology thing.
Totally.
So why are they bothering? It's not that old. But
Didn't they even do, like, a second Jumanji movie that wasn't Jumanji? It was, like, about a space game instead, but it was technically the same.
Yes, it was.
I can't remember what it
John
was.
Favreau made that.
I can't remember what it was.
Zathura?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Zathura.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I mean, wasn't that always kind of like the unofficial sequel to Jumanji?
Well, I believe it was like some sort of, I don't know if there's a source material for these, like books or something that they were from.
Yeah.
Or if it was just, but I feel like it was like the same type of source or creative.
Okay, it always felt like that to me.
Yeah.
It always felt like,
and I might be way off on that, but I got the same impression.
This is the space gate version of Jumanji.
Yep.
That's what it always felt like. Yeah.
That was a good movie too.
Yeah, it was a good movie. I liked both of those movies, which is why I was in kind of the same position as you when I heard they were making a new one. I was like, I don't think I need that. Like, why do I need that? But now that I've seen the trailer and see what they're doing with it, I'm definitely ready to give this movie a chance.
And you'll notice, like, it's Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle. Like, it's got its own identity. They didn't call it Jumanji 2, or it's not just Jumanji like the old one was. It really is. And I don't know if that's because it exists in the same world, or if they just wanted to separate it somehow. But it could easily be that the first, like, this is a sequel of sorts, or just there's a Jumanji universe out there.
There you go.
Where that
Jumanji had a universe before it was cool.
Yeah. But I mean, there's some separation between the two,
right?
So I don't know if that'll play into the narrative at all, but it's neat that they're at least doing that with a title.
I think it looks fun. I think kids are for sure going to like it. You know what I mean? It looks like that type of movie that's going to...
very positive about everything in this episode.
We are very positive. We are positive. We are a voice of positivity.
Yeah.
That should be... If you
I like episodes like this.
If you aren't a huge DC fan, you probably think we are the most positive people. Awesome. Do you have any other movie news you want to talk about?
I think we covered all the big stuff. Like I said, the Spider-Man thing is just the most exciting thing in the world to me, and that's all I can really concentrate on right now on a movie aspect.
Okay, well, let's go and jump over to some toy stuff then. There's a few toy topics I wanted to talk about today.
Hey, before I forget, because it wasn't on our itinerary, and this is sort of the toy video game world.
Okay.
You saw, I'm sure, the SNES Classic was announced.
Oh, I did want to talk about the SNES Classic.
Yeah.
Yes, that was very cool, and I will admit fully that I was in the camp of not believing that was something that Nintendo was really going to do, because as soon as they canceled the NES Classic, all of those stories broke where they were like, the reason they're canceling the NES Classic is because they're starting work on the SNES Classic. And I was the guy going, that's not true. They canceled the NES Classic because the Switch just came out and they're ready to start charging for every game individually now. That's why they really canceled it. I was totally being negative about the whole thing, but that just seemed logical to me. The Switch just came out. We already know we're going to get a virtual console on there. They're going to be selling those games for $3 to $5 a piece, so why would they want you to be able to buy a all in one system when they want to sell you those games individually. So I was totally the guy that was like, they're not going to do that. So I was quite shocked to see that they are in fact doing that, and that I feel like they're doing it far better than they did the NES.
It's right around the corner.
September is when it comes out. It includes 21 games, which is a few less games than the NES Classic. However, the games are far more quality, far more quality on this system. And the things that I was really, really shocked by, and that's really like a great reason to buy this, is so many of the games that they're putting on this are games that are not only very good, but are also very, very expensive to buy now. Games like Earthbound, Final Fantasy III, Secret of Mana, these are like huge, deep RPGs that go for hundreds of dollars now on the aftermarket. Like, those are some of the biggest some of the biggest, most expensive games you see at conventions that people still want to buy for their old Super Nintendo. And now you'll be able to buy the SNES Classic and just play them like on an official Super Nintendo product with a Super Nintendo controller. I mean, that's amazing.
Theoretically, you'll be able to get your hands on one. I mean, we'll see because it's Nintendo. But they have said that they're supposed to make a ton more of these.
I hope so.
They're supposed to be ready for the demand more when it comes out and everything. And the biggest selling point on the games list in there is they're including Star Fox 2.
Star Fox 2, which is a game that never got released. It's one of those games, if you've never heard of it before, the game was done and ready to go, but never came out. And I think it was one of those things that had to do with, it was kind of towards the end of the Super Nintendo's life cycle. The Nintendo 64 was coming out, so Nintendo just decided not to release it, even though the game was done. So the only way you've ever been able to play this game is like ROM hacks and stuff online. So this is the first time the game has ever been officially released, which is mind-blowing. That alone is worth the price of this system, I feel like. Plus, you get 2 controllers this time. The NES Classic only came with 1. This comes with 2. And it's the same price. It's $80. I mean, come on.
Was the old one? I thought the old one was 60, or the NES one.
You might be right. It might have been 60. This is totally worth the $20 price.
Yeah, absolutely. And I might be wrong,
like
but
$80
regardless,
for all of these amazingly well-made games, 2 controllers plus a game that's never come out before. That's unreal. I just hope that the supply is actually there this time, because I never actually saw the NES Classic in stores. I had to rely on somebody to find one for me elsewhere and like sell it to me, because that thing was just impossible to get a hold of, which was nuts.
And I had sort of opted not to buy it anyway, because most of the games on there that I wanted, I already had access to anyway.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that big. It was a cool thing. It just wasn't that big of a deal for me. But I always looked for it in stores. And I always had that in the back of my mind. Like, if I see one, I'm probably going to grab it. But I wasn't, like, bummed to miss it or anything like that. But, yeah, I did the same thing. Every Walmart trip, every Target trip, every Meijer trip, every trip to any Target, any of the department stores, I always went over there and checked just to see if they had that or the PlayStation VRs.
Yeah.
And they never had either of them until either the VRs are everywhere now, I think. But I never once saw one of those in a store.
That's crazy.
You know?
It's just... It's so awesome, because like the NES Classic was cool. It was neat for what it was, and I definitely wanted it mostly because I'm a Nintendo collector more than anything, and I like having that kind of stuff. But like, I feel like the Super Nintendo Classic has legitimately great games on it that is like worth sitting down and playing. And just to kind of address this, because this is the common thing I see all the time. You could just play ROMs, or why don't you just make a Raspberry Pi and then you'll have every game? Well, that's cool, and those are options. Yes.
I barely understand any of the words you just said.
So you've ever heard of Raspberry Pi? That's the actually, our buddy Justin Jones, I think he wants to make one or was going to make one. We were definitely talking about it before, but it's basically like you can build.
Is this a legal thing, or does he have to redact? Do we have to redact his name?
No, it's totally. I mean, people, this is like a big thing right now. You can buy them off of Amazon, and then you can fill it up with whatever you want. So you can build these little machines basically yourself, fill it up with every Super Nintendo ROM you want to, and then just play it through your TV or whatever. It's amazing.
That's neat.
So that's cool. That is an option, but I mean, some of us like collecting actual Nintendo products, so that's one thing. I love that this is as easy as just plugging an HDMI plug right into my TV, and I can play these old games with a Super Nintendo controller right there, boom. I mean, there's plenty of good reasons to buy this, and I hope that it is easy to find, because there's actually a lot of games on here that I've always wanted to really sit down and play, and I feel like I'll finally have a chance to do that. Like, I've never played all the way through Earthbound.
Have to find the time.
Yeah, we got to find the time. But I've never played all the way through Earthbound.
Yeah,
I have never played Final Fantasy III or Secret of Mana, and I've always heard heard incredible things about those games. So, like, this is going to be a chance for me to sit down and really discover some of this stuff, and I'm very excited about that.
And let's not forget, it looks like a little Super Nintendo, but it's tiny.
It's itty bitty.
It's adorable.
It's itty bitty. Have you actually seen the Nintendo one in person?
No.
I should show it to you.
You should.
It's mind blowing how small it is.
Yeah,
It's
I want to.
crazy.
I will see that before I leave tonight.
Okay, all right, definitely. Awesome. All right, so we're going to jump over and talk about a little bit of Super 7 news right now. This is a topic that actually came up a couple weeks ago, of course, shortly after we recorded the last episode. So I kind of wanted to talk about this sooner. I even meant to make a standalone video just talking about this, but I figure, you know what? This is good podcast material. So, not too very long ago, I want to say maybe, June 9th. It was when it was released. Super 7 released episode 3 of their Supercast, which is their video podcast where they basically just kind of talk about some news and some products that are coming out. And part of the way through this, they do this little skit where they're like, oh, breaking news, ThunderCats is dead. Which I chuckled at, but I totally understand. Some people were like, that's not funny. So, but then he goes on to kind of like really break it down and explain it. So basically, if you have been following us at all, we've talked about this a little bit. When Super 7 got the license from Mattel to continue the Masters of the Universe Classics line, a lot of people were also hoping they'd be able to bring over the ThunderCats license so that they can continue the ThunderCats toy line that Mattel just started before they shut down Matty Collector. They only released 4 figures in that line. 5, what is it? Lion-O, the twins, Panthro, Jackalman. Is that all we got? And then there were supposed to be a few others. So they didn't get very far into this line, right? They just started making these awesome ThunderCats figures that scaled perfect with the He-Man figures. And then Mattel decided they were shutting down Matty Collector and ceasing production on all of that stuff. So everybody was really hoping that Super 7 were going to pick these up as well. The Four Horsemen really wanted to keep making them because I know they already had things done and ready to go for that line. So Super 7's been working... The problem is that they have to work out that license with Warner Brothers, not Mattel, because Warner Brothers owns ThunderCats. So it was separate than just like Mattel handed them Masters. They couldn't do that with ThunderCats. It's a separate license they had to work out with Warner Brothers. So the last several conventions, I've always talked to them. I've asked them the status of it. People ask constantly what's going on with ThunderCats. They just basically kept saying, we're trying. We're going to see what we can do. But the news finally broke that Warner Brothers got back to Super 7 finally and basically told them, we are not interested in licensing ThunderCats at this time. Just like basically just straight said, we're not doing anything with ThunderCats right now, and basically just put the kibosh on the whole thing. So, unfortunately, this means an end. Again, another premature end to a ThunderCats toy line, which is the second time this has happened in the last decade, which is just unreal. I mean, poor ThunderCats cannot catch a break, and it's really sad to see. So it's weird, and I don't really know what's going on. Brian in the video kind of says some things along the lines of, well, maybe this is a good thing for the property. Maybe this means that they're looking for a reboot of some sort. Maybe this means that they're looking into a possible movie, and that's why they want to save the license until they've got something. So, he tries to put a positive spin on it, which is a good thing. I mean, he's right. Maybe they are looking to do something with that license. Maybe that's why they don't want to just hand it out. I thought it was really kind of funny too, but also reaffirming of this whole thing is shortly after this, some folks were on Twitter asking NECA Toys if they were interested in picking up the ThunderCats license now that Super 7 is not going to do it. And NECA responded to those tweets basically saying, Warner Brothers has stated that they are not interested in licensing out ThunderCats. So they basically backed up what Super 7 said and said that they couldn't do it either because Warner Brothers doesn't want to. The only part of this that's a little strange is that the Loyal Subjects, which is another toy company who are known for making the small little blind box figures. They do it for Masters of the Universe and Power Rangers and several other stuff. They have a ThunderCats line coming out. They actually teased it at Toy Fair this year, and folks have checked with them since all this news broke, and they've confirmed, our ThunderCats line's still coming out. So I don't know if this was a case where they were able to work that deal out before WB put a stop to the licensing. I don't know. I have no idea. I can't even begin to understand how licensing works sometimes. It's a really, really tricky deal.
I would think there's an okay chance that if there are reasons behind not wanting to do like the main license deals with the the toy companies, they're going to do like the actual toy lines, but they're willing to let kind of the blind bag stuff go through. If they are planning something bigger, they're probably not overly concerned with the idea that some of the blind bags come through, because those are they're just smaller figures.
They're smaller.
Usually. They're not necessarily as detailed. They're not something that you don't. It's like sort of like those pop figures,
In a sense,
there
yes.
There are pop figures of everything,
and there are ThunderCats pop figures out there.
Yeah,
too.
and it doesn't matter if those show up. Like those showing up aren't going to take steam away from the next line of Transformers toys and Marvel toys and whatever else. They're just sort of their own thing. So if they're sitting back thinking, well, we want to make a movie and we want to make toys out of our movie, blind bag figures aren't going to get in the way of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? However, another toy company making a line of their own things based on a different version, that might get in the way.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, that could easily be just one of those things where they're like, you can't do it. You guys are fine. Do what you
guys
do.
Can do it.
Yeah.
You're cool.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It is sad though. I did want to also see this line continue. Obviously, I wish they could have worked it out. I believe that they tried. I really do. I know every time I talk to Brian and specifically talk to Eric and CB at the Horsemen, I know they really, really wanted it to happen. It's not like they just, kind of tried and didn't let it go. No, I know they were really trying to pursue it. So it's a shame that they weren't able to do it. Unfortunately, this is the way it works sometimes with licensing. Yeah, I hope that ThunderCats does catch a break eventually. I'd like to see it really get a real run at things. I know that there's a petition out there right now too. Like after this news broke, somebody started there's a petition online to like let Warner Brothers know that we want ThunderCats toys. I'm always kind of like 50-50 on how those things really work. I don't know if that's going to change their mind, but if it's something you guys want to look into, you can do a search for it. You'll find it, and if you want to sign it and throw your name in the hat, go for it. Maybe it will help to let Warner Brothers know. Yeah. Who knows?
It never hurts to tell a company you want their property.
Definitely.
It's never a bad thing, and it's gonna. I don't know what plans are in the works, and even if the plans are in the works and being fast tracked, that doesn't mean we'll see anything for years. Who knows?
Exactly. Yeah.
But ThunderCats is always going to be out there somewhere, and Hollywood is going to keep rebooting everything.
That's true.
It's only a matter of time before something happens.
Yeah, Warner Brothers isn't just going to sit on that and not do anything with it, I don't think.
Yeah.
They might be just still trying to wait for it to... Because, they kind of considered the last cartoon a failure, and they mostly attributed that to the poor toy sales, which is really a bummer, because I like that cartoon, and they canceled that show because the toys weren't selling.
How long ago
well
was
enough.
that?
That was 2011?
Okay, it's more recently than I thought, honestly.
2011? Yeah, 2011. So it was... they did that whole thing where it was on Cartoon Network, and they kept changing the day of the week it was coming on, and the time it was coming on. They were seriously moving the show all over the place. They were putting really long delays in between new episodes, and then they were like, show's canceled. And it was a bummer, because it feels like it never really got a real chance,
Yeah.
It didn't get a real fighting chance, but I don't know. Maybe the future holds good things for ThunderCats. I hope it does.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed indeed. So staying on the Super 7 track, we briefly mentioned on the last episode that the Masters of the Universe Classics Ultimates were on a boat on their way to the country, which means they're going to be shipping out to customers soon, which is Super 7's first batch of new He-Man action figures, which is really exciting stuff. So that's coming up real soon. We should all be getting shipping soon, it sounds like. But the news I wanted to talk about was just in the last couple days here, we got our first look at the final card backs, which is the packages, the back of the packages for the figures. Thanks to, let me give a proper shout out, World of Masters Magazine, which is a website online. I think it's actually a German website. They posted some actual photos of the card backs, which is our first time seeing what the artwork and everything looks like on the back of these packages. It's very nice looking. The artwork is brand new. It's done by guys like Axel Jimenez, with colors by my buddy Val Staples, a bunch of guys who have been working pretty closely with Masters the past several years, so it all looks really nice. It's got a very cool vintage feel to it, which is really, really cool. So seeing them is awesome, and it gets me excited to get these figures. There's been a little bit of drama that I want to address with it, though. And that's that when these figures were initially announced, Super 7, I think, had mentioned that they were going to be collector-friendly packages, which most people kind of consider that means, well, it'll be like a clamshell of some sort. So you'll be able to open it up, take the toy out, and then if you want to put it back in, you can put it back in and display it on the package. But it looks like by these pictures that that's not the case, that these look like just standard blister cards where the bubble's glued on, and in order to get the figure out, you'll have to rip the bubble off. So there's been some disappointment with that because these are beautiful looking packages. I could totally understand why people would want to keep them in the package, but also have the option to display them loose if they want to. I'm kind of in that same boat because I ordered myself one set and I'm going to review them, which means I have to open them, which means I have to destroy those packages. And they're really cool because this is the first time we've gotten these new He-Man figures on packages that look like the original toys. Yeah. And so I'm not necessarily like a mint on card guy. I pretty much open all my toys, but sometimes when they do stuff like that, yeah, I totally get the appeal of like displaying it that way. So I have no idea why Super 7 changed their mind. They haven't made any kind of announcement yet. San Diego Comic-Con's in a couple weeks. I will definitely make sure I ask that question when I see them. I'm sure they will give an answer. So that's really all I have to say about that. I've had a few people ask me what I thought about that, so I just wanted to throw that out there.
Had they officially announced that they were going to do it that way, or was it sort of just something that had been said at some point?
I was trying to find, and it's probably out there, and maybe I'm just not looking in the right place. I was trying to find like the original news announcement from them to see if that was listed in maybe I can find it real quick. Because I wanted to confirm that too.
They don't seem like the type of company who's going to say, "Hey, we're doing this thing," and then just ignore the fact that they're not doing it. You know what I mean? So makes me think one of two things: either A, maybe that was like an interpretation, like, "Hey, we would like to do this,"
maybe that's
but not a commitment, or maybe they haven't specifically said they're not doing it. Maybe there's something
that's true
about these pictures that are misleading. Maybe you will still get what you're looking for. When all is said and done, but
right,
that seems less likely. But
I know, yeah, maybe it is one of those things where they just said that they wanted to do that, but never officially said it. I don't know. And like I said, I tried to find the original announcement, and I'm not finding it, but I'm probably just not looking hard enough.
Well, this show's all about positivity.
Yeah,
so I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt.
I'm still excited about the toys, and I'm definitely, like I said, I will be seeing Brian in a couple weeks at San Diego Comic-Con. I will definitely ask all the questions that I always ask, and that will be one of them. I will find out for sure what's going on with the packages. So you guys will know as soon as I know. I promise.
Tell Brian I said hi.
All right, I will. I'll let him know.
And then explain who I am, because I don't know Brian.
We talk about you a lot on the podcast, Brian. You got to know who John is.
He's the guy on the right.
He's the guy on the right. My left. You're right. Sweet. All right, well, that's all I've really got today as far as topics go, but we have a ton of questions on our Facebook page, so I thought we would take some time to kind of go through some of these questions.
We will answer 2 questions.
Only 2?
Man, we can do more
all
than 2
of the ones that we have? All right, well, we're going to start. I actually have to flip around to a couple different pages here to find them. So let's go ahead and start with a question from Dexter Morrill. Shout out to Dexter. He's actually done a lot of artwork for some of my stuff, like my From Plastic to Pixel show. So
hey, thanks, Dexter.
Dex is the man. So his question is, what would your reactions be if Disney announced they were remaking the Star Wars prequels after finishing Episode 9, or what would you like them to do after Episode 9? So, first of all, if they announced they were remaking the prequels, I'd go, buh. Why? We don't need that again. I don't think that's a good idea at all, right? I think we should just leave those how they are. We don't need to remake any Star Wars movies.
Yeah, in a perfect world, I would like to see better versions of those stories, but I don't ever actually want to see that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't want to see a Star Wars movie get remade.
Yeah.
I want to see new Star Wars movies.
Exactly.
So if they're going to keep making stuff after Episode 9, I really don't know what I want, to be perfectly honest.
Well, it's a hard... We don't know what's going to happen in 8 or 9 yet.
There's
true. No telling. That's like true. Saying, what do you want 7 to be after seeing A New Hope? I don't know. I don't know what...
That's true. We still have to see where the story goes and how it unfolds. Yeah. To know if we want to see that story continue or...
I think we know they will always continue to do Star Wars stories.
Of some sort, yeah.
I would like to see some brand new content at some point, like, I mean, Rogue One was mostly all new characters with a few familiar faces, but it was a familiar story.
It's still tied to the main story.
Exactly.
Right?
I would like to see something from the far stretches of the universe that has no one I've ever seen or met before.
I wonder if they can. I think they're kind of worried about doing stuff like that without tying it to the main story that everybody loves.
I think it's a matter of time.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think it would be fun to see just stories from different characters from around the universe that doesn't actually have to do with the Empire or the Skywalkers. That could be fun.
Or even if it was, I mean, what I wouldn't mind seeing someone like, say, Lord and Miller, doing a Stormtrooper comedy somewhere.
Gosh, dude! What was it? Tag and Binks, was that the name of that book?
Yeah, that's right. I forgot that existed.
Comics. Yeah, something like that would be so great.
Yeah, something that's it can be familiar looking. It can have I mean, the Empire stretches across the galaxy, so you're not just going to ignore stuff like that's out there.
Okay, that's true.
But it can be the smaller regions. It can be, and you can do different genres with it.
Let's just start picking some of the random aliens and give us some stories.
Absolutely.
Let's hear about Hammerhead. I want a movie about Hammerhead. We saw him in the background of the cantina. What's his life like?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, that's the kind of thing. I think there should always be some sort of main story. So honestly, I will not be upset if they do 10 through 12 and then 13 through 15 and then 16 through 18. And even those don't have to be Skywalker related necessarily, but they'd have to follow each other in some way, shape, or form.
Gotcha.
I'd be fine with them doing that in perpetuity. Mm-hmm. But on the side, I would like to eventually see the Star Wars story start being more fringe things. But that's not a complaint about what they've given. I think the idea of a young Han Solo movie is, like you said earlier, a little scary, but a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it. I thought Rogue One was a great idea and a perfect place to start.
Yeah.
They've talked about doing Boba Fett movies. Cool. They've talked about
I'm a little worried about Boba Fett movies.
They've talked about doing Lando movies, which I think they're sort of taken care of with Han Solo now. But I mean, if you want to do stuff like that, I'm fine with it. But if you're going to make a minimum of one movie every year, heck, let's go off script for a while somewhere.
Totally. All right, Jesse writes, Dan, you need to make more gaming videos with Norm. That's not really a question.
Who's this Norm?
It's a statement. He's my other friend. I don't know.
You have another friend?
I have another friend besides you. Are your feelings hurt? We don't do a podcast. It's not like we're infringing on this territory.
You know what? I don't want to talk about it right now.
Well, I will tell you that we do have more gaming videos on the way. We've already filmed a bunch of stuff, and Norm and I just debuted some new footage from them at this convention we were at this last weekend. So stay tuned. More stuff's on the way.
Why don't you go see Spider-Man with Norm next week?
I'll text him and see what he's doing.
No, don't do it.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'll buy you a hot dog.
Okay, I like hot dogs. I do like hot dogs. Carl writes, I know you're going to San Diego Comic-Con, so what pop figures and routines are you looking forward to seeing and doing? Man, it's crazy because we are like 3 weeks away from San Diego Comic-Con already. Yeah. I'm going to be in July. I'm going to be in
goes so fast.
California in a couple weeks here. I've already started making my appointments, which is just insane. So, pop figures you specifically mentioned. I was really hoping to avoid Funko completely this year, and not that I dislike Funko. It's just really hard to buy things from them because they're very popular and their lines are long. And I think I've mentioned this before, but I don't really stand in a lot of lines for toys at this show because I'm way too busy getting some work done. But I will say that they just revealed some San Diego Comic-Con exclusive He-Man pops. Of course they did. They're doing Scare Glow. I want Scare Glow really bad, so it's on my list. But as far as things I'm looking forward to, I just love the atmosphere there. I always love going and talking to Randy at NECA. My video that I do with NECA is always one of my favorites every year. And the stuff I do with Jim Fletcher at DC Collectibles is really fun. And I actually just booked that appointment today. So I'm really excited about that stuff. Plus, it's just always fun getting out there and kind of doing my thing. I like the convention coverage because I feel like that's like I feel like really I hit my stride when I'm doing that stuff. I enjoy that, so I'm looking forward to getting out there and actually doing some work. I think it's going to be really cool.
I always like the podcast the week after.
Yeah,
I get to hear a bunch of cool stories.
Yeah, that's always fun to kind of reminisce and talk about all the crazy things I saw.
Tell me how much fun you and Norm were having.
Norm won't be there. It'll be okay. I'm going with Christina. You jealous of her too?
Sometimes.
John Russell writes in and says, what direction do you think Marvel will and can go in Phase 4, and do you think that they will keep the momentum up? Love you guys. Well, first of all, we love you too.
Yeah, thanks.
What do you think? You want to take this one?
I'm excited that we know as little as we know. You know, I thought when they announced, I mean, through part of Phase 2 all the way through Phase 3, it just seemed like a lot of movies. And I felt like it sort of took some of the fire out of took some of the anticipation out of it, because you're like, well, I mean, now I know the next 12. It's like 4 years worth of movies they announced at once or something like that, you know? And so part of the fun before that was, I don't know what they're making next, what new things are going to come out. Now, it's been fluid since then. When they made that first announcement, Spider-Man wasn't a part of it. They've added, you know, the Ant-Man sequel, so there's still some of that mystery there. But as for right now, the longer I go before they make an announcement on kind of what's coming next, the happier I'll be. And I really feel like they're, if they can at all, going to keep it under wraps at least through Avengers 3, because it sounds more and more like, you know, the Infinity War story is going to be the end of the road for, I mean, some of these contracts are up. Some of these characters aren't coming back, it sounds like. It'll be interesting to see what they do with it. So if they're planning on making Bucky into Captain America, they're not going to announce that until after you figure out what happens with Steve Rogers, you know, that kind of thing. And so I'm sort of just enjoying not knowing right now.
Yeah.
As far as what direction, I mean, there are certain things, you know, the Spider-Man Homecoming is planned as at least a trilogy already, you know. So we are looking at that, you know, those movies existing through the next four to 6 years.
About that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not like there's nothing is going to come out on the other end. It's not like that's going to be the end and they're going to start redoing it or anything like that. So what I'm expecting is probably a little less grand than we've built up in our minds. My assumption would be that it'll sort of just continue status quo.
Yeah.
But it'll be with some newer characters. And some smaller movies, and I'm always sitting in the back going, hey, if you're done with Avengers 4 and all the Avengers go away, no reason not to do the West Coast Avengers.
West Coast Avengers, nice.
Get some Wonder Man in there.
Wonder Man up in there.
Yep.
How about that Moon Knight movie? I'm ready for that Moon Knight
Yeah, there we
movie.
go.
Yeah. Or, you know, we've brought this up before too, and this is probably like a real long shot still at this moment, but if there's a time to do it, after we're done with all the Infinity stuff, would be a great time for Marvel to bring the X-Men stuff in, if they're ever going to get the X-Men.
You know, I still don't want them to bring the X-Men stuff in. I really don't think they need it. I tell you what, though, if you're gonna follow up Thanos with another big bad, if you can get your hands on Doctor Doom.
Oh, dude,
man,
that's it right there, right? Get the Fantastic Four back and make Doctor Doom your big bad.
Yep.
Oh, that'd be.
And I barely care about the Four at that point. Just bring Doom in, you know.
Nah, you gotta
How awesome would that be?
I want to see a proper Fantastic Four.
I do too.
The same way we wanted to see a proper
I've
Spider-Man.
heard some rumblings. I thought maybe from you. I don't remember some rumblings of them doing like a kid-friendly Fantastic Four. Did we talk about that last week or last time we taped?
I don't think
or
we
was
did,
that
actually?
Maybe it was somebody else. All rumor stuff, but somebody said they were talking about doing something along those lines, and I don't know if this would just be Fox or Fox and that's the other thing. There's a lot of mum is the word on a lot of this stuff, and we've even had some questions come through along those lines. With Marvel and Fox, apparently there's more and more X-Men showing up in the comics again. I think we talked about that last week. I keep saying last week. It was like 3 weeks ago. But last episode. Which I didn't know was happening, but apparently that's happening. And, Marvel has helped Fox, I think, a little bit on like the X-Men TV shows. There's a lot more working together along the lines. They did the deal with Ego for Negasonics powers, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mum is the word. And I'll bounce ahead to another question we haven't read yet, but it's in here somewhere. Somebody was asking us about... what do we think about Sony kind of flip-flopping on the Marvel Universe movies, whether they're involved. And that's another thing we talked about a little bit last episode. I really feel like these are decisions that haven't been made yet, and that's one of the reasons. Because you do, when you talk to
the question was from Ryan, by the way.
Okay, there you go, Ryan. Yep. Yeah. When you talk to the Marvel heads, Kevin Feige or whoever, and they're like, well, we're doing Spider-Man. The rest of that stuff we don't really have anything to do with. And then they talk to Amy Pascal, I think it is, at Sony, and Sony's like, oh, yeah, it's all the same universe. And you go back to Kevin Feige, and he's like, we really don't know what's going on. And then you go back to Amy Pascal, and she's like, it's kind of the same universe. We don't. So I feel like these are negotiations that are happening somewhere, and everybody's sort of still just waiting to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to tell us everything either,
exactly.
Right?
So
they got to keep some of that stuff held back.
So part of it is, if they are working on Venom, maybe they don't want us to know until Spider-Man comes out. Or maybe they don't know for sure until they see the returns.
How insane would that be if that Venom movie comes out and freaking Spider-Man just pops up in it at the end or something?
It'll be awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Or in the middle, or at the beginning.
Yeah,
or
right?
anywhere
And
along
nobody
the way,
knew or expected it?
And again, that's another thing, too, when I talked about it just a few minutes ago, the anticipation of some of these announcements. If, let's say they got Fantastic Four back, and let's say they are going to do something with Doom, I don't want to hear about that in a press release.
That's true.
I want to hear about that at the post-credit teaser.
Right. It's
after
like,
Avengers 3 or 4, you know what I mean? I want that to be like when they dropped Nick Fury into, I almost said Nick Cage. That would be awesome too. They dropped Nick Fury into the credits on Iron Man and everybody lost their mind. I want that again somewhere. I want to be surprised by something that happens on screen.
It's like when you're watching the Royal Rumble and you get a surprise return in the Rumble that you didn't know about. That's what we want.
It is exactly like that. He is not wrong. But that's the thing. Like I said, I want that shock value. I don't want to know everything 3 years ahead of time from press releases. I want to be able to watch the movie because still to this day, I wait for those credit sequences, and I love them all, and I think they're neat, and I think the teases to the next movies are fun, but I always expect something bigger than I get.
Yeah, it's been that way lately, for sure. Sure.
And so I'm hoping at some point they give me a surprise again.
Man, it was just that when we saw Iron Man and Fury shows up at the end of that and wants to talk to him about the Avengers Initiative. That was amazing. Yeah. And then we saw Hulk and Stark shows up at the end of that to talk to him about the Avengers Initiative, and it was just like, this is really happening. Yeah. This is insane.
Yep.
Unreal. Yeah, that's what I want to. I would love that.
Now, I will say this too, they have said about the Spider-Man movies, Stark's not supposed to be in 2 at all, but someone else from the Marvel Universe is supposed to be, and they haven't announced 2. If they just make a series of Spider-Man movies that are nothing but Marvel team-up, totally fine with that.
Man.
That, because those were always awesome stories, just Spider-Man hanging out with whoever for whatever reason. Yeah. Like, if that's all these are, cool. Absolutely cool.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Next question comes from Christopher Bandish. He says, where do you guys see the toy landscape going in the next few years? Smaller companies like Super 7 getting big licenses like He-Man and the constant stream of Kickstarters and other third-party companies. Are we looking at Hasbro and Mattel starting down a downward slide? Are they going to start focusing on just a few core brands, allowing for some of the smaller, less popular IPs to be framed out to other companies? That's a really interesting question. I kind of feel like this has been going on for a while, though, and I honestly don't think that this is going to impact what Mattel and Hasbro are doing too very much, because at the end of the day, Hasbro and Mattel's biggest focus is on kids and kids' toys. So, like with Mattel, it's like Hot Wheels and Barbie and DC Superhero Girls and Monster High and stuff like that is where all their money is coming from. With Hasbro, I mean, they have all the games, Monopoly and all the board game stuff, and they've got Nerf under their buckle. Like, that's probably where they're getting most of their money from. And then, of course, when they've got these big budget movies like Transformers, of course, they're selling a bunch of Transformers toys. So, honestly, I don't really feel like these smaller companies or Kickstarters that are doing niche collector toys like He-Man with Super 7 or like some of the stuff we're seeing get kickstarted like Sectars is on Kickstarter right now, and Big Boss Fight Studios is doing collectible Bucky O'Hare toys. That stuff is all geared towards us as adult collectors, and that's cool and that's awesome, but we are such a small piece of the toy pie that I don't really think that that's going to impact Hasbro and Mattel's like bottom line that much at all. Honestly, I don't think so. I think their biggest concern and biggest competitor for the last several years, and probably moving to the future, is always going to be video games and apps and smartphones and stuff, which is why so many of them try to incorporate more of that kind of technology into their toys when they come out, because they're trying to stay as relevant as possible with modern day kids. Mm-hmm. So I definitely don't think the smaller niche stuff with Kickstarter and stuff is really going to impact that too much, honestly.
I agree.
John agrees. Next question comes from Kerouac that says, do either of you read current comics? We get it, Dan. You're busy and you don't, but what about that guy on the right?
That's me.
That's an incredibly aggressive question. What do you think, John? Do you read comic books currently?
No.
Neither do I.
Yep.
It's totally a timing thing.
Yeah.
And get off my back about it. Jeez.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I'd be interested in reading. I've heard some good things about some of the... whatever the phase they're doing after the New 52. Apparently DC's doing some pretty interesting stuff, and the idea that they're, phasing Watchmen into the continuum and stuff. Like, I'm interested to see what's happening and all that stuff, but I get most of my information from friends who read it, because I don't even know where to start.
Right. I agree. That's kind of where I'm at with it too. One of these days, maybe, but it's tough to sit down. I would really like to read a lot of the Turtles comics, to be perfectly honest. If there's anything that I'm not happy about not reading right now, it's all of IDW's Ninja Turtles stuff, because I started reading that and I absolutely loved it, but I kind of just fell behind because of time and money, and I just never caught back up, and that's what it is. It's expensive to keep buying comics.
I'm always a little tempted. I don't know exactly how it works, but I'll see things like they have that Marvel subscription service for the digital. It's like $10 a month or something like that, and you have vast libraries you get access to. That sounds amazing to me.
Yeah.
I just I get lost in it's a personal flaw of sorts, but I'm sort of a completionist at times.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to start something and not be able to do all of it. I'm the guy who plays the Arkham games through to 100%, even if it takes me hours and hours to beat one of those
Riddler trophies.
Or those the levels you have to beat where you're just fighting the guys. I've spent days on one of those because I'm not going to stop at 99.
Those get frustrating when
stuff
you're
like
almost
that.
done with them and then somebody knocks you down.
Yep. Well, they're super fun, and I like the
fun.
challenge of it. But the point is, it's the same with comics.
Stealth are my favorite parts of those
When
games.
I used to read comics as a kid, I would seriously go and I would bring a stack of 25 books a week home.
Yeah.
Easily, because if one story branched out into another story, I had to get both issues, and then I had to get 10 other issues for this other guy to figure out the entire thing, and I just don't have time or ability for it now. Yeah. And so it's like I said with that, I'd like to read some of that DC stuff, but I can't just pick out, a few Superman issues I'd like to read to see where he's going. I would end up getting into it and then reading 60 books just to feel like I was getting started, you know what I mean? And I don't know where to stop. That's honestly why I fall back on some of the stuff I do. Like I mentioned, I'm a couple years behind on Supernatural right now. That all happened because for the first time ever, I got like 10 episodes behind, and I was like, well, I'll just wait for the season and I'll catch it up all in one chunk. And then that all of a sudden became halfway through the next season. It was like, it's that same way. I'm behind on all these DC shows because I don't have it in my mind to sit down and watch an episode and then an episode several days later and then an episode several days later. If I sit down and go, well, I got 48 minutes to kill, I could probably hammer an episode out, but I want to wait until I have 6 hours to hammer out a big chunk of those, and that part never comes up, So it's a bit of a flaw that it's I just can't get into something without diving headfirst into it, so it holds me back from some things, but one of those main things is comic books. Ever since I was probably, I think I stopped reading them fully in my early 20s because I just ran out of time and concentration, and I can't picture ever going back because I don't even know where to begin. I'd love to, I just don't.
I am with you. Totally.
So there's way too much of an explanation
There you go.
for your simple question.
For your angry question.
I don't think he was angry.
He was rude and mean.
He's not writing
I'm
all.
upset.
He's not writing at all caps or anything.
He's not screaming. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's probably cooler than Norm.
I forgive you, Carol. Whoa.
I feel like I was just rude there. Norm, you're probably a nice man. This is a running gag, and now I feel like I've taken it too far.
It's we're all good. It's fine. All right. Sammy says, do you have any San Diego Comic-Con predictions or hopes in terms of toy news? Also, can you give me a ballpark odds on when a full ThunderCats team at some point will be released in the next 20 years? Yeah, we just talked about the ThunderCats stuff. I have no idea. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed for you. But San Diego news, I don't really know what to expect as far as like new reveals or anything goes. I will say that, again, I'm always looking forward to what NECA has on display, and with all of the amazing Ninja Turtles stuff they've been doing lately, I'm really hoping that they like tease or something like what their next Turtles set is going to be, if they're doing more. I hope they're doing more, but I want to see more Turtles stuff, so that's what I'm hoping for. Fingers crossed. And our very last question comes from John, who says, Dan, a while back you got to tag with Billy Gunn. How would you rank his former tag team partners being Road Dogg, Bart Gunn, Chuck Palumbo, including yourself? This is a fun question because, yes, indeed, I got to tag team with Billy Gunn not too long ago here locally at our wrestling show, which was awesome. It was so much fun. It was really
very cool.
It's cool because in the long years that we've been doing this, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of professionals, a lot of guys who have been in the biz for a long time. I actually ran a mini program with the Hall of Famer Cowboy Bob Orton once, and that was really, really cool. So it's pretty neat, and it's just part of it, and it's fun. It's always cool to meet these guys and work with them. I will say that working with Billy Gunn is probably the most of like a little mark that I ever felt working with a professional because, gosh, man, when I was a teenager, in the 90s, in the Attitude Era, DX was, they were it, man, and I watched these guys on TV every week. So when I got to do the entrance with Billy Gunn and I got to do the Road Dogg part, and we actually did the whole like shtick in the ring, I felt like 19-year-old me was like out there. It was really, really fun. But also, dude was a total professional. Worked a great match with us. It was a lot of fun. So if I got to answer your question and rank them, of course, I would rank myself at number one because I'm egotistical like that. So Spencer Powers, and then Road Dogg, then Chuck Palumbo, then Bart Gunn.
Oh, no love for Bart
Sorry,
Gunn.
Bart Gunn. I actually like the Billy and Chuck stuff. It was
The
really
Billy and
funny.
Chuck stuff was great.
And New Age Outlaws are actually one of my all-time favorite tag teams. So
Yeah,
Road
that's
Dogg
sort
and
of
Billy
an
Gunn
unfair
is up
question,
there.
yeah.
Road Dogg and Billy Gunn is definitely up there. But it was definitely an honor and a lot of fun to get to work with that guy. It was very cool.
I will say I didn't actually get to work with him at all. I went and introduced myself. He was very cordial and everything like that. Seemed like a nice guy. I always think it's funny when they look so big on TV, these guys do. And then sometimes you hear the stories about like the Shawn Michaels or somebody who, they're really not that big. They're, 5'10", 5'11", something like that, whatever. And then you meet like a Billy Gunn in person. You're like, gee, evidently this guy is way bigger,
huge
than he looks on TV.
I've seen it both ways because there's a lot of guys that I've met. Like I've worked at shows with Tommy Dreamer and Rhino, and like Rhino is stocky and built, but he's short.
Yeah.
And Tommy Dreamer, probably about the same height as me. And Rikishi, I think Rikishi was about the same height as me and Jaren. He's just a bigger guy,
Yeah.
But Billy Gunn is tall and big.
Yep.
Like that dude's a big dude. So.
And I actually remember walking like years and years ago. There was a show in town that they were a part of. It wasn't like one of our indie shows or anything like that. It was like a promotional thing that came through and. They were sort of not really I guess they were kind of just standing in the crowd at one point, and it was him and Road Dogg. And I remember that time because I just sort of had it in my head because they ran with, Shawn Michaels and whatever, and I always thought of Shawn Michaels as a smaller guy, and they didn't. I guess they were definitely bigger than him, but I never felt like they were giant standing next to him. So I always just had it in my head that they were probably fairly normal-sized guys, and I remember like walking by them and like looking up, like, good
they're both very
gravy.
tall.
You guys are like 9 feet tall right now,
well, also,
and about 5 feet wide.
Also, Billy Gunn looks exactly the same now as he did in the Attitude Era, which is amazing. Dude's in great shape. He still worked great in the ring. So. Yeah, it's funny. This is the second time I've been in the locker room with him. First time I got to work with him.
Yeah,
I've been in the locker room with Billy twice now. So.
Did he remember you?
I didn't even ask. I'd probably not. I mean, come on.
Did you just stop and go, hey?
Hey, I was at that show at the convention center. Yeah. Remember that?
Anybody still owe you any money? Anybody at all?
Billy Gunn doesn't owe anybody any money. Let's not get that out.
No. Yeah, no.
He was referencing a totally different inside joke, so there we go. Yeah. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for the questions. We had a lot of great ones this week. We always love seeing the interaction from you guys. If you ever want to post questions to us, be sure to like us on Facebook at the Geek Easy Podcast. Just do a search. You will find us. And I always try to put up a post when we know we're going to record, so that way we can collect as many questions as possible. Very easy to do. This show is available in several different formats. We have a video version that we put up on our YouTube channel, so definitely do a search for Geek Easy Podcast on YouTube and subscribe. That way you will get the full video version if that's something you're interested in. Otherwise, the audio version is available on pretty much any podcast source that you have. iTunes, Stitcher, and now Google Play.
Yeah.
We are available on Google Play.
Yep. I was very happy to find that.
Yes, I was really glad that we were able to get that up. It was very easy to do. So we are pretty much available anywhere now as far as audio goes. So whatever your preferred method is, follow us, subscribe to us, give us a rating, a review. That always helps to boost us up.
Yeah, and that that stuff really does help. So I hope you guys realize that we're not just begging for praise by any means, but there are a lot of people out there who do seem to enjoy the show, and we love you for it. Thank you very much. We're sorry about being sporadic on the taping and everything. So that's our apology there. But as far as, if you ever want to do anything that's going to help the show, we always say with these smaller toy companies and stuff, you always got to pay with your dollars. Well, we're not asking you for any money.
Right.
But if you want to do something to help the show, seriously, go out and put one of those ratings out there. Give us 4 or 5 stars or write a little review for why we like it. That really does matter more than you feel like it does.
Definitely
going to do it, and tell some friends about it and just sort of get the word out. And, the bigger the show gets, the better the chance that we'll keep it
absolutely
regularly.
And it's always great hearing from you guys. And like I've mentioned that I was at that convention this past weekend, and I had a few people come up to me and tell me that they were happy we were back on track and that they enjoyed the show. And it's always great just hearing that, especially when I get to meet people in person. It's like, hey, people really do listen to us. That's exciting. So we do appreciate that quite a bit. So, that always helps. Subscribe, rate, all that good stuff. But we are out there several different ways that you can download us or watch us. And we should be back pretty shortly with a new episode because Spider-Man Homecoming will be out in the next week here, and we will definitely have a lot to say about that.
You can send us questions if you want for next episode, but if they aren't talking about why we're gushing so much over Spider-Man, there's a chance they might not get answered.
Spider-Man questions only, I guess.
Send us whatever you want. Just don't be upset if we're too preoccupied for one episode. I've been waiting for this my whole life.
Oh, man. That's great. I can't wait. All right, guys. Well, until next time, I am Pixel Dan.
I'm Jonathan Leonard.
We'll see you guys then. Thwip.
The Geek Easy Podcast is a production of PixelDan.com. Musical tracks used in the intro and outro are used with full permission of the respective owners or creators. Intro and outro narrations are provided by me, Brian T. Stevenson. Any animated series discussed are copyright their respective owners. PixelDan.com's The Geek Easy podcast is provided for entertainment purposes only. The views expressed are those solely of the hosts or guests and do not necessarily represent those of PixelDan.com or any other party. Be sure to join us next time for another installment of The Geek Easy podcast.